Welcome to the Creative Light. I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce today's very special guest. He's a CEO, founder, and creative force behind Just Creative, the award-winning branding agency that's helped the world's most iconic brands stand the flock out. We're talking huge brands like Disney, Nintendo, and Nike, right? With over 15 years of experience, he's all about turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. Welcome, Jacob. How are you?
Thank you, Ivy. I love that intro, so thank you. I think it's out of context for a lot of people if they don't know the pinky side of things, the flamingo aspect. So I'm sure we can tuck into that.
I think that's where I would like to kind of start. You've already brought it up. Your brand presence is really strong and your branding is so strong. I feel like if I see something pink, I actually think of you. If I see a flamingo, I think of you. Do you want to talk a little bit about the process for those people who are not in design? Because I'm not a designer. I just help designers. So for the audience who aren't designers, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. 2007 is when I started Just Creative Design, as it was called back then, which is my brand design firm, studio based here in Sydney, Australia. And yeah, I've been running that since 2007. So fast forward to today. A couple of years ago, I've introduced a mascot for our agency who's called Pinky, and it's a flamingo. It's like a 3D kind of stylized, low poly style, if you're familiar with that. Flamingo, he wears sunglasses, he's very cool, and he dares to flare. So continuing this theme of the flamingo, we have some sayings that go along with it that aligns with our brand. So stand the flock out. That's our kind of mantra. It's like, don't blend in, don't be beige, don't be vanilla. I love vanilla ice cream though, but that aside, we want to be extraordinary, right? We want to take you from ordinary to extraordinary, and that's what our brand design studio does. So we have a bit of fun with the flamingo, and we have other sayings like dare to flare and flock ordinary and stand the flock out. So you can have a bit of fun with it, and it goes here's another pun, but the legs are long on this one. So the theme goes deep. And yeah, there's things like let's flamingo and sayings like that. So we have a bit of fun with the flamingo theme. But it hasn't always been like that. We've always had pink as our brand color since 2007. And that's perhaps why you may recognize that. It's been the same color for nearly 20 years. So 17 years or so, something like that. My maths is not my strongest point. But yeah, it came about a couple of years ago because, I don't know if you want to get into that story, but I'll leave it there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, right.
Let's go into that story.
How the flock do you get a flamingo as your brand mascot? That's the question.
Yeah.
It's a good question. It all came about because I was doing a pro bono branding project for my mate's gym, and he had this lion mural, and it was amazing. And the theme of the gym was, it was like be fearless and have courage and, yada, yada. And I was like, I don't have anything like that for my brand. I was like, well, what animal would represent our brand? And I was like, the flamingo. And I shared this just on, I made a poster, like a Pantone poster, and I printed it out and I shared it and I got a lot of attention. And then people started relating flamingos to me and like were sending me photos of like flamingos. I'm like, oh, I just thought of you of this. And then I started getting like flamingo gifts, and this idea of the flamingo kind of stuck. And I went on for like a couple of years, just, being very much in the background, but it just got to a point where I was like, let's fully lean into this and let's see where it takes us. And at that time, we didn't have any of that fun, the sayings I just mentioned. It was literally just like this background mascot, and that was it. But about a year or so ago, we rebrand is probably too strong of a word, refreshed our brand identity. We introduced Pinky, our brand mascot. We updated our typefaces to be much more bold, and we introduced two new typefaces actually, which kind of had this really bold display typeface and this really elegant script typeface for accents. So it's just like kind of nuance between both of them, like very complementary. And yeah, that was part of our brand refresh along with the mascot. So that's a little backstory of Pinky.
When people are creating their own identities. To me, it sounds like you also created a verbal identity. How did that whole process go? Because you have some great phrases here that you can use. How was the whole
Yes.
process of getting to that?
So I started with the visual aspect, and when I say visual, I think in typefaces, and we already had a color, obviously, but could we extend that color? So it was more about, what typefaces could we include that kind of emphasized our new identity, and that was a little bit more bold, a little bit more, well, it stood out more. So we had a pretty reserved, I don't want to say reserved, it was very modern and clean and simplistic, our previous identity, and still is, but now it's just been taken up a notch, and it has this like nuance between bold and elegant, along with pinky. So I was exploring the visual aspects, and throughout that process, I'm like, well, what are some sayings that I can use with the typefaces that I was exploring? So I was just literally typing out flamingo sayings, and I was using AI to like come up with flamingo I guess phrases. It never spit it out, stand the flock out, but it did give me a lot of ideas around like the verbal language we could use. So it would be like paint the sky pink, or be the flamingo in a flock of pigeons, like that. Those sorts of like sayings. And when I was exploring that, I kind of just went on a tangent and explored different verbal sayings. And then through that exploration process, that's when stand the flock out came. I didn't want to go as far as like saying flock off, but there was like this nuance of like, well, how far can we take this without being offending? And like flock off, I think is one too far. So this is more about standing the flock out. But yeah, maybe if someone's a little bit mean, we can use that other one.
Have you seen an impact before and after in how, from a client side, have you attracted a different type of clientele, or
So
has it?
as soon as I launched that, I landed a client pretty much straight away. And the impact that it's had is that it's been much more memorable. And now everyone associates flamingos even more to me, which associates the pink aspect. And, it allows our brand to come front of mind when it comes to branding or standing out, especially pink, or if they see flamingos anywhere. Even at the zoo, like I've ruined it for so many people going to the zoo or seeing flamingos. They're like, bloody jacket Cass. I can't stop thinking about this guy. So I'm sorry, guys. You probably won't think about that the same way moving forward. But yeah, it definitely had an impact as soon as I launched, and the memorability factor has definitely increased. The positioning of our brand hasn't really changed too much in terms of like who we're targeting. And so that really didn't change. It was more of like a identity refresh versus a rebranding or repositioning.
Okay, I see it. But you didn't see any significant impact on how people reach out to you? Like, was there a change in, not that it was done on purpose, but was there a change in who might be actually reaching out or ready to buy?
There was a few other things I didn't really mention, like how this came about. I had some other changes going on in my business in terms of how my clients were, or how I was getting clients. And since 2007 till about 2 years ago, SEO was my biggest lead magnet, if you will. It was like the way I attracted people was through search, SEO, search engine optimization. So I was found quite easily through search on Google for phrases like brand designer or logo designer or brand strategist. And then about 2 years ago, Google's algorithms changed, and we lost a lot of rankings, and that meant we had to adapt our strategy. And we moved from an SEO focused strategy into I moved more into LinkedIn, and that's where I started getting clients. So I updated the website and LinkedIn and our other social profiles, and kind of leaned into this idea of standing the flock out, and that's how it came about.
So recently, I was part of your summit, the Brand Builder Summit, but we know each other from before. I was actually in awe over how you organized the whole thing. I'm like, wow, I don't think I'm ever going to do a summit. Like, I had someone doing all the things that we were supposed to do for me. He's my assistant, and I literally would just say, "Can you just create the email that we're going to send out, and then everything that I needed was already there. It was just so well organized from the back end of things. I mean, complete awe, and I'm like, I'm never doing a summit. This looks like so much work. I have questions about the summit. Like, why did you do it? How did you end up getting it so organized? Can you spill some of the beans?
Yes, absolutely. So why I did it, I've been a speaker at many different summits over the past, say, 5 years. And a lot of people are asking, like, when's your summit? And I always had clients and other projects going on. I just never really had the time to dedicate to it. And then these Google algorithm changes happened. We lost about 90% of our traffic and we had to adapt. So yeah, lost a huge chunk of our business, and it just seemed to happen at the right time. And that was February 2024. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then that same week I had 3 clients land. I was like, this is like, I don't want to like damn this, but like, come on guys, I was just about to do this summit. So anyway, I did the client work and pushed out the summit to Q3. And that actually worked better because I needed that extra time to do all the planning and really elevate it. And there was a lot to learn. So yeah, the short answer is like, it happened because people asked, and then because of the changes to my marketing, and it was the right time. And apart from the timing and business side of things, I've always been about empowering designers and creatives. Like, I'm a business coach, I'm a brand designer, I'm a strategist, and I've always loved doing that. Like, I serve 2 kind of audiences, and that's entrepreneurs and business owners, and then also creatives and designers and entrepreneurs in the creative space. So it's always been there, and I was like, man, this is the right time. I think this is going to make a huge impact. And there was literally nothing in the space that had focused on branding as a summit. And there'd been plenty of design summits, and I've spoken at many design-focused ones, but nothing that focused on the various aspects of building a business and a brand. So that's why there was 4 days focused on 4 different areas, which are crucial for growing a brand and a business, which was brand strategy, design or brand design, growing brands, and also the business of brand. And those aspects together were kind of like my 4 key passion points. I was like, this is like my dream to work on all these areas and like bring all these people together. I'd run a podcast for about 5 years, so I had a lot of connections and knew a lot of people in the space, and it was just like the perfect, I don't know, like, not prodigy is the wrong word, but like alignment of all these things. I'm like, okay, well, the time is right, let's do this. And that's how it came about and why I did it. The next question is how I did it, and that's a pretty long conversation.
Yeah.
But it took about 3 to 5 months. It depends on how you count it. Like, I definitely had the idea like January, and it launched at the end of August. So like, I was thinking about the positioning and the ideas like as start in the earliest January, but like I wasn't working on it full time. It was just like percolating. And then maybe after that client work, I don't know if it was like maybe May, June, that's when I really started. And like, I had a short list of speakers, I had designed the identity, and there was a lot of planning that went into it. And then I did all the speaker outreach and everything. There's a lot of moving pieces. Like, I don't want to bore you with all those moving pieces, but there was a product that I invested in to help with the process. It's called Summit in a Box, and it teaches you how to run a summit. And it's an incredible product from Krista, and I've also, Krista Miller, I believe is the last name. I may have got that wrong, but incredible product, Summit in a Box. I've spoken at her summits a couple of times, and they were brilliant. So I was like, I really trusted this. And what that course/product was, it basically gave you a blueprint of how to run a summit and gave you like the structure or like a to-do list of the order of things to do. And I would have been so lost without that, like so lost. And it had a lot of templates to use in terms of, here's a speaker outreach template, here's a contract, so it's streamlined the process. But yeah, there's still like a shit ton of work too.
Yeah.
like so much that I totally underestimated. it all, but I'm also like I overdo things as well. So like there are shortcuts to be taken, but I definitely didn't take shortcuts, and I really focused on the experience, and that's what it's all about. Like the experience was everything for me. Obviously the identity and the branding, like I love that portion, but it was all about the experience. So I'm not sure what you want to tuck into there, but there's a lot to unpack.
There is a lot, but I think we can probably go to the takeaways a little bit. On the summit, it was really takeaway focused. You had workbooks, you had people taking notes and sharing their takeaways to really make sure that each thing that they were experiencing actually had actionable steps, rather than it just being like sometimes you go to these summits and they just don't have any essence. Like, oh, this is just a funnel to one of your programs. And it wasn't like that. Everyone had real actionable steps that you can implement and change your business. So I suppose my question is, what is your takeaway from your own summit, actually having done it? Do you have any takeaways to share?
There was a lot of takeaways, and I literally just gone through doing the reports and like the recaps and some of the takeaways, because I may actually be interviewed by Krista as well for her podcast as well, which is on summits, obviously. And yeah, there was a lot of takeaways, like things I would change, feedback I received from surveys, and what not to do, maybe things to improve, what people loved, the speakers, and so forth. So there's many different aspects. There's like the planning, there's the speakers, there's their experience, there's like the upsell, which is like a VIP offering, and then there's post-summit as well. There's the connections and the community and the networking. So there's like many different facets of it. But in terms of takeaways, like I didn't have a back-end offer. I didn't have any funnel to lead into any offer. So I have no high-end high-ticket course, and I'm working on building something with the community that was made. So I'm surveying a lot of people and talking to people to understand what they're looking for and creating something with them. I'm not sure what that is yet, so that's a work in progress, but summits, they often do feed into some other high ticket offering or community or something like that. I didn't have that, so a lot of my focus for this summit was on the VIP upsell, which was called the Power Pass, and it was an incredible offer. It was like $100, $97 for $6,000 worth of value, which you contributed to, and it was just amazing. So that made for a record summit for Krista, from all the students. So it was definitely a record-breaking summit, and that was all just from upgrade sales, Power Pass sales, no back-end offers at all. A little bit of sponsorship deals, but that was small in the minority of things.
If other designers are looking at this, they see that, okay, but you're a business coach, so that works for you. If we look at this as a funnel of actually attracting their ideal clients, is this something that you would recommend if we can just take the summit, put it to a designer and use it for a design service? Would you do something similar?
Summits can be tailored for any particular goal. So it depends on the goal of the summit, and that will dictate how you structure the summit, what you sell, how it's positioned and everything. So a big portion right at the start is really nailing the position of your summit. So what is your goal? Like you start there. Who are you targeting? Who are the speakers? How does that lead into your goal and your offerings? So you really do have to keep that in mind. So for example, right, there's other businesses that offer either communities or courses for, like, let's say building or learning WordPress or website design services. So there's always that you can offer at the back end, but the summit would be then focused on web design. Like ours was on branding and design, but let's say you did web design as a service, then you could tailor the summit around web design, where it could be for business owners. Or you can go on the other side and, like, maybe it's a web design community, then you would position the summit around, helping web designers. So it really does depend on, like, what your goal is.
If you were to look back at your own business, and if you weren't the business coach, would you consider doing a summit style event for the design side of it? Is this something you might recommend to the listeners who are listening?
Well, I believe if you have the right positioning and goal, then you can tailor anything. To the right, the right audience. It really does come down to that. That's my simple answer. So yes.
Anything is possible.
Yeah, if you think about like white t-shirts, right? How many white t-shirts are there out there? You can sell it to anyone with the right price tag if you know who you're selling to and you have the right story and the right marketing and like all that. So it really does come down to all of those things.
When you look back at the summit itself, what was the most scariest thing that you had to do?
The planning was, so like I did all the fun stuff first, and I'm a brand designer, so like did the website and the logo and identity, and like I spent so long on the graphics and like all the speaker graphics, and like that just chewed up so much time, but the time went so quickly. It was like you're doing what you love and it's effortless, and that was so enjoyable.
Yeah.
The scary aspects, I don't know if scary is the right word, but I guess the things that I had doubts about was like, what if people say no? And they did say no. Like, what if it doesn't work out? Like, what if people don't show up? What if, like, there's so many what ifs. But the thing is, you have to trust the process and trust the journey. And I kept saying that to myself. I'm like, who knows what this will turn into? And like, I didn't have much other things going on. I was just like super focused on this. Like, just put your heart into it, put your soul into it, and trust the process and enjoy the journey. And that's all you can do. Right? You have to just go with the flow and do your best. So that took that scary element out of it. But the things that I did think about were like, well, what if people don't fulfill their contract, or like there's tech problems? Like there's always things that could go wrong. And to be honest, like there was one speaker that I didn't get their presentation till to the day before the summit started. So like, yeah. And that's like, I had a contract signed like at least 3 months earlier than that. So it's like things like that. Speakers pulling out, finding another speaker, and then I had a backup speaker, and then I had too many speakers. But you adapt and you learn, and and then, like during the summit something went wrong, like the whole portal went down for like a day and a half, and you have to deal with that. So all those scary things, like I didn't actually know that would happen, so they weren't really scary, but things come up throughout the process. Yeah,
it was a huge undertaking. How many people were working on it with you? It feels like you had support. Did you, or was it just you?
I wish I had more support, but I don't want to take full credit for it. But the vast majority, I would say 90%, was me, and the other portion was probably like the developer who worked on the website, who did all the coding and bringing that to life, which he did an incredible job. And then I had a VA do data entry for titles and things into the website and so forth. And I had someone do email support during the 4 days of the summit. And then I hired a few experts. So like had an audio branding specialist do our audio branding, and they were a sponsor for the event. So that was a sponsorship contract deal. Then we had a video editor who I also, it wasn't a sponsorship deal, so I paid the video editor. Yeah, and that's about it. I now that I've done the summit, I know where to delegate, but the things that I really enjoy, like the brand and so forth, that was like I spent a lot of time on that, which I didn't necessarily have to do that, but I enjoyed it. I also spent a lot of time planning as well. So like the speakers and just admin side of things, a lot of logistics, like contracts and follow-ups and, tons of emails. Like I don't even want to count how many emails, but it's like I think over nearly 700,000 were sent over the like 3 months to like the audience and speakers and everything, which is crazy. So yeah, like I probably did too much. Next time I will definitely delegate more. But now I've been through the process. I know what I can delegate, and where I can improve things, like the processes, what not to do, what worked well, and so forth. So, yeah.
Nice. As the person who was experiencing some of the emails, I was like, I hope he's got someone doing this. There's a lot of information here, which is really useful. But because I've had designs on doing something virtual before, and part of me is completely daunted by seeing yours. I'm like, I don't know if I will ever do it. There is so much work to do. But also seeing the success you had, because you brought in so many people to your summit, which I'm completely in awe of. Like, that's an incredible feat. Do you want to share how many people that you had coming through and what your expectation was?
Let's start at the goals, right? So when I set out for the summit, my goal was 2,500 registered attendees as my minimum goal. I'd be happy with that. And then I had a stretch goal of 5,000 people, registered attendees. And I had a goal of 25,000 visits to the homepage and 250 upsells for the ticket. So that was my goal. And I would have been happy with that as long as I had sponsorship deals that would cover my base costs. I was like, I'll just trust the process. Like, I'll get exposure for my brand, and I'll build my email list, and like I'm cool with that. Then the first week, I think we had 10,000 signups. I was like, oh my God. I was like, wow. And I was blown away, and like I was counting, like, can we get to 5,000? I was like, yeah. So we made my stretch goal, and I think that was like 4 days in, and then a week later it was 10,000, and then the following week it was like 15,000, and then it was like, I think the day of the summit it was like 18,000, the day before the summit, and then everyone gets FOMO on the last day. It was like the last chance to upgrade, and then it jumped up to I think 19,500. I'm like, then it started slowing down. I was like, guys, we have to hit the 20K mark. We have to get there. So I was like, I sent a message to everyone, like my speakers and the community. I'm like, guys, I need your help. We need to get to 20K. And that happened pretty quickly. And and then it went finally, I think by the end of the summit, it was 23,000 registered, which is crazy. So
such a big amount of people.
Yeah, it was a lot of people. But I want to say that is a vanity number because it doesn't mean that many people come. So we had 23,000 registered, but only 7,000 came into the community live. So there is a big difference between like what people register and people coming live, but then people can access the replays through the Power Pass. So there was also that aspect of it as well. So yeah, it's a nice number to like flaunt, but I do want to share the reality of like that doesn't mean like that's how many people come.
That's also what I've really enjoyed watching about the summit, that you've been really transparent with the work that you've done and with the numbers. It's interesting from a business perspective. It's interesting for me to see. I'm like, oh, okay, so this, I can see the work at the back end. I can see the numbers coming through, and it helps us kind of evaluate like, okay, what works and what doesn't work. And of course we can see why it's worked so well because it's so well branded. You put in incredible speakers together. Like, you have a great network, and every element needs to do its job in order for it to be a success. But I love the transparency because it really helps with the perspective for everyone.
Yeah. So just to touch on that, as a speaker like yourself, a big portion of a summit success is to do with the marketing from the speakers. So as you saw, there was a lot of emails and promo graphics and everything to help the speakers promote. And that was a big aspect, and having clear communication. So a lot of emails. I think there was like probably 15 emails just over those, like, I don't know, couple of weeks for, getting you guys up to speed, like promoting and keeping you in the loop and excited and, sharing the numbers. And when I say sharing the numbers, it's like we did a pre-launch, so a pre-test. So we sent it to our wait list, and I shared that with you guys, and it was like we had 90% conversion rate, which is like mental from the landing page, and sharing some of the upgrade conversion rates. And this sort of data gets the speakers excited because they you can see that it's working and that the sales pages are working, and it's like, well, let's do the promotion because it's going to work. And the more that each speaker promotes, the more value everyone gets. So some of the results from the speakers, they've grown their email list by like 4,000 subscribers in a week, which is crazy. Some have sold their high ticket offerings. Others have grown in other ways, so their follower accounts. I've had some get about 5,000 new followers as well. And not to mention the monetary factor, we spent nearly 40K to our affiliates as well. So, everyone wins.
I haven't looked at what I have received by being part of it, but I know my diary is full for September. So I didn't know how successful the summit was going to be. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just do a CTA where people can just book a 30-minute session with me. I don't mind that. I enjoy being with people. I can help them. And it's not a sales call. It's actually a road mapping session. No sales allowed. I literally say that. And I was so pleased with myself because I thought at first that I had just said it like, yeah, just send me a DM and it'll be fine. Thank God I actually put 10. I'm like, I didn't say first 10, but I said like I'll release 10 spots. I actually ended up releasing more, but I did vet people before because they have to have a business because some people didn't have a business yet. But my diary is full for September. I can't actually physically take any more calls. And I've met some really, really wonderful people, of which I think one or two of them will actually become clients. And this is just the beginning. So thank you for letting me be part of the summit.
I love to hear that. I hadn't heard that from you, Ivy. So that's awesome to have a whole booked out month and land some clients. And that's what it comes down to. Like the fact that so many people promoting and it's just value from everyone. I think that the impact, you can't even see the ripples. It's like it just goes forever. It really does.
Exactly. And as part of the Power Pass, people can access my Find Your Fans course. And I didn't set any notifications because I had to turn it off because I'm like, boom, boom, new person. I'm like, oh, okay, easy now. And then just the other day I looked and I'm like, 300 people have joined the Circle community for the Find Your Fans. I'm like, wow, that's like, I don't know how many Power Pass upgrades were there. I can't recall the number.
There's over 2,000.
Yeah, so 250 or 300 of them have already joined and taken advantage of the course, which is brilliant. And I love people taking action, when they actually do something. They haven't just bought it, they're actually going in there and learning. Yes. It makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned earlier, like action was a huge focus for me because I've been part of so many summits and it's just a fire hose of information, and there's no point in just having a fire hose because it doesn't equate to anything if you don't take action. Like, sure, you have a bit of knowledge there, but knowledge is useless unless you use it. So I really emphasize the fact that you need to select areas of your business or what needs the most work or where you have motivation. You have to kind of decide that and then focus on that and put things into action. So choose a couple of presentations, choose a few areas of focus and take action on them, because you literally cannot, watch 24 presentations and use all that information. You have to choose. So that was a big part of it.
Just before this call, I met with someone, and she had said, I'm attending someone else's something around niching. I'm like, just choose one person. It doesn't matter if it's mine or theirs. It's just about just choose one pathway, stay committed, and do the work, and then you'll start seeing the success. I think a lot of people think that it needs to be all of it and just take the best from one. I'm like, just decide on one and stay committed, because you'll see the change when you actually stay the course.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you all the way.
When you work with people from the business coaching perspective, do you normally work with people early stage, mid stage, or scaling? What do you normally do?
They're generally junior to mid-level creatives. So they either had the business for a couple of years, or they're either trying to venture into a new position or a new role or learn a new skill.
I find that when I talk to my audience, their main problem is their positioning. They're more often than not really, really poorly positioned. Mm-hmm. When it comes to, because you do brand strategy as well, so can you because I know that my audience would need this. Can you do a crash little mini course right now on
So
how important it is?
yeah, so position is a huge topic, and because there's many different things to consider. So how positioning works is I use a 3C model, which helps me simplify the process and helps clients understand it and what that refers to. There's many different models, but this is the one I choose to use. And you look at your company, you look at your customer, and you look at the category. So those are the three aspects you need to look at. And based on those three areas, and after you do your research, you have to find your position, right? What your brand does the best and what your customer cares about. That's the simplest way to think about it. So how are you going to differentiate your brand from all the others out there? That's what positioning is about. And it's challenging, right? Like, why should someone choose you over a competitor? And I get it why it can be challenging, especially for beginners when they're still trying to figure out their skill set and improve their craft. So it's like, I don't know who my customer is. I don't even know my skill set yet. Like, I don't even know my company. So it's like, it can be challenging in the beginning. But the thing is, in the early stages of your career, you work on your craft, you work on your skills, and the business acumen comes with it. And over time, you understand where your skill set is, where your passion is, what your company can offer, what value you can bring. So then you kind of have an understanding of where your company sits. Then you have to understand who your customer is. Like, what value can you bring this key customer? Let's give an example. Let's say you do logo design. How can you position your brand as like a logo designer? You know, that's what you want to be known for. That's the one thing you want to be known for as the logo designer. Well, there's a lot of logo designers out there, right? So how can you differentiate yourself, right? Is there a particular niche you go after, like a different type of customer? You know, is it for restaurants, or is it for the tech industry, or is it based on the price level? There's many different ways to niche down, but you have to understand the customer that you're going after, and that's really important. And also has to be related to the value you bring, so the service offering, what type of logo design, for example. Okay, but then there are pesky competitors out there, right, who are also doing the same thing. The whole category. You may not think, you may think about logo design as one thing, but when you think about the category, it's quite big. It's not just logo design. It's like, oh, there's graphic design and branding, and that's the category that you start playing in now. So you have to consider all these areas: the category that you're playing in, who your customer is, and the value that you can bring. And that cross section is your position, right? So that's what it's all about.
A lot of people worry about the niche, and you mentioned that. Can you do it without niching, in your opinion?
Can you do without niching?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think niching gets a bad rap because people think about it in different ways, and people have different understandings of it. And there's many different ways to niche. And someone that comes to mind that you can probably learn more about this from is Michael Jander. He has a whole article and book related to pricing and niching. There's a brilliant article on his site about this, but how I think about it is like an upside down pyramid, and there's different ways that you can niche. It's generally by like your service offering. It can be by location, it can be by price, and there's one other aspect I can't recall at this time. So you have to understand like how far down the funnel you want to go, or the pyramid, in terms of your niche. Niching can be challenging, but you can also put you in, like, you can pigeonhole yourself. So if you go far down that funnel, you get into this pigeonhole. So you have to make sure that there's a market fit for your particular niche. And I always love examples. So let's go with an example, right? Let's say you're an illustrator. You do brilliant illustrators. You're the best illustrator in the world, but you just illustrate everything, right? You don't have a particular audience that you're selling to. Okay, but suddenly you found that you're selling a lot of cat illustrations. Okay, well, maybe there's something here. Maybe I could create cat illustrations. Maybe that's my niche. Like, maybe I go after cat lovers and create customized cat illustrations of people's cats, right? Suddenly, you've gone from this brilliant illustrator that does everything for everyone to illustrating cats for cat lovers. Suddenly, you have a hyper-focused niche and you can become more successful until other people come in and compete with you. But at that point, you could already have carved out, your brand and be known for the particular cat illustrator. So that's how niching works. But you have to find the right niche to get there, and that can be challenging.
When I help people with their niching, one of the perspective shift that I help them with is, first of all, it's not forever. You don't have to be in that niche forever. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, it's just bringing focus. So people think they're not allowed to do other things outside their niche. This is your business. You can do whatever the flock you want.
Yes.
Just, go with it.
Yes.
But ultimately, it brings focus to what you do. And if you're more focused, then you're going to be able to stop overthinking. You'll be able to take action faster. And you'll be able to validate whether that niche is actually going to be working for you much, much faster. And then eventually people get it. And one of the examples I tend to use is I usually ask people, like, who do you do this for? And then I say to them, like, imagine I have this big bowl of things, all of them. There's so many different things in it, and I'm just going to throw it out on the floor. Then I ask you, and I'm like, oh, can you just find that thing for me? The first question you're going to ask me is like, what is this thing that you want? Like, what is it that you want?
Yes.
And that's usually what I ask people. I'm like, who is it that you want? I can't find clients. I'm like, oh, who is your client? It's like, yeah, small businesses. Like, that's everybody. That's literally like 99% of the business. So it just brings a lot more focus. And I like your 3 C's. And I find that that's going to be very useful for people when they listen to that and apply that.
Yeah, there's a lot of documentation on that, the 3 C's. It's not my model, but it's something that's so simple and in theory. But once you know those 3 things, you can dive deeper into them.
Yeah. It gets to be simple if you choose it to be.
Yes. And then it gets not simple because you've gone too deep down the rabbit hole.
True. What is your, one of the questions that I get is, should I have a business brand or should I have a personal brand? Do you have an opinion on this question?
There's no right or wrong answer to that question. But that said, if you look at, certain figures, right? Like Richard Branson versus Virgin, for example, like who's got the bigger profile followers, I should say. It's always the individual. It's not the company or the business brand. And there's different aspects to them. Some are more personal, the business a little bit more, structured. So my opinion is that you have to do right for what your goal is, and how your business is structured and how your personal brand is structured and how it fits in with your overall strategy. There's a lot of aspects to consider. So there's no right or wrong answer.
I think with the trouble that people are having is that, well, I don't know how to differentiate myself. Everyone's a logo designer. Everyone's working with restaurants. How will I then become different? You've managed to create a brand that is very differentiated by your verbal identity with the mascot you have. Like every element of your brand has helped you differentiate yourself from others. Are there other things that people may consider when creating their brand from a brand perspective? Like, what are some key elements that can help them differentiate themselves from others?
Okay. So there's a couple of questions in there. So before we get into differentiation, which is a whole other topic, in terms of personal brand and company brands, there's different ways to structure your company and your personal brand. So for example, my brand is called Just Creative, justcreative.com. My personal handle is Just Creative. So all my handles are Just Creative. They're one and the same, right? My company and my personal brand. And I've been a sole writer since the beginning. Like no employees, have been a one-man show. So that's why it works for me. I don't have a separate agency and I don't have a separate personal brand. There's pros and cons for that. There really is. Another way to structure it would be having a personal brand and having a company brand. You have to grow two different profiles, and they're separate. That works quite well if you have a team and you want to separate the two, right? And generally the agency or the team would be different enough so that your employees would get behind the brand and not a personal brand. So I'm going to give an example here. Examples are great. Thinking of someone. So Christy Campbell is a personal brand. She's a designer and she's got an agency called Pink Pony Creative. And she's got a team and they get involved with, they're all behind the Pink Pony Creative brand. They're not necessarily behind Christy's brand, but Christy is her own brand that promotes Pink Pony Creative and feeds clients into Pink Pony Creative. So there's a different structure there, and that's based on how things are run. If I ever wanted to hire a team, that because it's called Just Creative, my agency, and it's not called Jacob Cass Designs, I could potentially still follow that structure and then feed clients into Just Creative. And I could potentially change my brand to, say, Jacob Cass instead of Just Creative, like a personal handle I'm talking about. So there's pros and cons of both. It really depends on how things are structured and your goals. So I hope those two examples kind of give you a breakdown of those structures.
Yeah, I think they're good examples. And I also think about Chris Do and The Future. It's similar, right? That The Future, very established brand, and Chris has his own personal brand, but feeding each other, similar to Christy, exactly. I think. Yeah. Yep. And on the topic of differentiation, I think we probably have to end soon after that.
Yep, we've covered a lot.
Yeah, we've covered quite a lot. But I find that people use their personal brand to differentiate themselves, which is kind of how I made the link. But yet, when I see you, the brand itself just it doesn't seem like you're utilizing yourself to differentiate. I feel like your brand stands by itself without you, rather than is propped up by you. Does that?
Yes.
That's how I perceive it, though.
Yeah. So it depends on where you're interacting with the brand, the touch point. So if you went to my homepage, it will definitely be focused on myself. So like you land on the page and you'll see my face front and center. But my other like Just Creative / personal brand on like social media, I do a lot of facilitation. So I interview a lot of people and I do summits, and I'm not necessarily like the hero all the time. I'm not creating content where I'm the face of the brand. I'm very much, I guess this is probably where you're perceiving this, is like I'm a bit more secondary, and I share interviews and snippets of other people. So that's kind of where it comes from, I guess. So, but there are two aspects of it.
Is there something in particular that you want to share to the audience that's listening? Somewhere you want to point them towards what's happening next? Okay.
I have a huge bundle of branding and design resources on Just Creative. It's called the Branding Briefcase, and there's a ton of free value in there. I'd love for your listeners to get involved with that, because there's a brand there's so much in there. Let me just run through some of these things. Everything's free in exchange for an email, obviously. It is called the Branding Briefcase. There is logo inspiration, there's brand strategy workbooks, there's custom GPTs, there's inspiration, there's sales call scripts, there's so much stuff I can't even remember these days, like how much is in there. It's all for free, and I add to it over time as well. So as a subscriber, you get new additions. So for example, the custom GPTs was a recent new addition, and yeah, you can just grab that from justcreative.com.
Fantastic. I'll link that. Super. It's been amazing to chat to you. You're so lovely to speak to, and you have so many stories to share. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ivy, and thank you for being a part of the summit and sharing your knowledge, and it was great to have you. And I think the business aspect is, like, it's not the most sexy topic, like everyone loves design and like that's their passion, but like the business side of things is so important, and that's why I really wanted to have that as a day and a focus and get creatives more business minded and help them earn a living from their craft. And that's what it comes down to. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of The Creative Flight. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I invite you to leave a review. It really helps more creators find the show. For more insights and behind the scenes content, you can follow me on Instagram or LinkedIn. You can also check out my resources on ivymalik.com. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Until then, keep creating, keep pushing those boundaries, and keep taking flight.